You are listening to the Nightly News Podcast, the voice of the Knights.
Welcome, everybody, to the Nightly News Podcast. This is Professor Paul Miller, and I am so honored to be joined by, and this is about my favorite time of the year, I gotta say, so excited to be joined by several members of the Central Penn Knights baseball team. We are being joined by, first of all, head coach Chaz Stevens. Head coach Stevens, thank you so much for joining us on the show, and it's a pleasure to have you on today's show.
Dr. Miller, thank you for having me.
It's my absolute pleasure. Also being joined by senior Knight, Roniel Morel. Roniel, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
And, of course, Kyle Brent, who also is one of the key Knights on the team. Kyle, welcome to the show in your own right.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, and you got a great radio voice, so we'll have to see if we can have you on in the future as well. So today, this is sort of an annual episode that we have here in the annual schedule of the Nightly News. Of course, we cover a lot of sports. We will continue to cover all of the home games for the Knights here, and but I want to start off by kind of taking a look back at last season, and one of the, without question, most successful seasons that not only I can recall, but that our team has ever had. You certainly could point to a record number of victories with 26, a small college World Series berth. I mean, Coach Stevens, you know, it was your first season last year. Where do we even begin talking about last season?
Yeah, last year was a great start for us. I do believe our program has had a history of being successful. I do believe we took a step in the right direction last year. We had a ton of guys contribute that were new guys on campus, and it was a fun season to watch for sure.
So, and one of the things I do want to do in the first half of the show is I want to go back to some memorable games, some fond memories of last season. Again, we are going to talk much more about this season because we're getting ready to enter into the season, but it's difficult to, talk about what we're expecting for this season without talking about last season. So I want to just kind of look back at the schedule last year. One of the things that I do recall was the big trip south to Mid-Atlantic Christian. This was something that you guys look forward to every single year. Unfortunately, you only got to play one game because essentially the other two games were rained out. What impact did winning that first game of the season have on the season that would follow, Coach?
I believe the MAC-U game was really a start in the right direction for us. We went down there. They're a competitive program at the USCA level every single year. We have had a history of struggling with them. We had guys really step up. MAC-U hosted us pretty much every single year for the last few years, and it's been a way for us to kind of test our chin. We really went down there last year and competed with them in a way that allowed us to grimace hope for the rest of the season.
And I think that's really important. Kyle, when you look back to that trip, what are some of the things that you recall and some of the things that maybe went forward in the season that you learned in that first game?
I think that game pretty much showed me that our team, that game was kind of representation of what our team is and how I pretty much went throughout the season last year. Kind of like a little more of a scrappy team. I figured that one out, and that it's kind of a never say never type of team.
Roniel, anything to add?
Yeah, kind of where Kyle touched on. The last few years that we went down, we kind of got our butts handed to us. So going down last year, especially with a new coach, not knowing what was going to happen and going in their first game, getting a win, kind of brought a lot of light to how good the season could turn out.
Well, and of course, one of the challenging things, which we'll talk about that in terms of this year, but the weather. Basically, you had 6 consecutive games either canceled or postponed after that home start, and then you come back for a doubleheader at Penn State Scranton, and unfortunately fall to 1-2, and you don't end up getting your first victory of the season till a month to the day from when that Mid-Atlantic Christian contest was, with a doubleheader sweep at Bucks County. So talk a little bit about how that first month went, how disheartening were those losses to Penn State Scranton, and how tough was it not to be able to get on the field for over a month after that first victory?
Yeah, baseball in the North is definitely crazy. Games in February are always a gamble. We did go down and played Penn State's granted a neutral site last year, and we got tested. We really got knocked off of our high horse coming out of that Mid-Atlantic Christian win. I do believe it allowed us to kind of settle our horses and get back in the right direction, though.
And so I do want to just come to this March 7th game. Of course, Bucks County Community College, there's no love lost between our two programs. Of course, we faced them in the ESAC championship game multiple years in a row. So how important was that to the season that would come to be, Coach, that massive doubleheader victory last March 7th?
The Bucks game just feels a little different, especially when we're down there.
And I'm sure they would agree, too, when they play us. I mean, we have that rivalry. Even in basketball, I see the same thing. There's that rivalry between the two teams.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's definitely the game that I looked forward to the most after watching some of the game film from the previous year, being that we've been in the ESAC championship fighting it out with them for the last few years. Bucks always really produces a good program. Tim Trader, the head coach, does a good job of getting new life in their program every year. I'm excited to see how we match up with them this year.
Roniel, as a player who's been on the team for quite some time, can you explain a little bit more about this rivalry with Bucks?
It's kind of just the two top dogs going at it. I mean, it's a small conference, not a lot of teams, but you could definitely tell who the top guys are. And especially just last year going in and beating them the way that we did, it kind of just showed us that we had a lot more to look forward to in the season than just our conference. We definitely had some bigger aspirations.
I definitely remember, and this was right around the time that we started, not only the ESAC started, but we really started putting the foot on the gas in terms of being a force to be reckoned with, is the first season we played them at their house. And if I'm not mistaken, was it the second season that we won the ESAC there, or was it the first season?
My first season, we won the ESAC. That was the first year that we
in
won
Bucks, though.
At Bucks, yes.
And if I recall correctly, there was some drama that happened back then. We don't need to go into that, but would you say that sort of added some fuel to this rivalry?
Yeah, definitely. We went in there as heavy underdogs, and coming out with the win, there was definitely some flare going on after the game, and I think that's continued to carry on since then.
Yeah, there's no question. I mean, Bucks is always the one that I circle on the calendar. I'm sure you guys do too. So I'm sure that was a huge victory. Now listen, there came a point from March 7th all the way through March 23rd where you only lost one game. You went 9-1 with only a stray loss at Lancaster Bible College, an 18-11 loss. And I don't want to key in on that game. The game I do want to key in on is Penn State Mont Alto, which was essentially the first home game last season. Back-to-back games, and I remember calling these games. I mean, you don't talk about two of the most exciting games that you're ever going to watch, unless you're a fan of offense, that is. Pitching duel in both games, a 1-0 victory, a 2-1 victory, just less than a week after an 18-11. So, Coach, how did that show one of the important side? Because I will say, in my experience with Central Penn baseball, the offense has never been the problem. Often it was the depth at pitching. What did those two victories point out in terms of the quality of the pitching staff that you've assembled?
College baseball is really awesome when you look at it. You can go through scores and you can see games like the Lancaster Bible where we're in a slugfest, and then Penn State Mont Alto, who ended up being the number one team in the World Series, actually came out and played a great game. They have a ton of guys that are extremely competitive at our level, first-team All-Americans. They had a D1 bounce back named Carter Fogle that threw all of the first game. He actually pitched into the 8th inning against us. Mount Alto does a great job of putting a good team on the field. And with that sweep alone, I think it really solidified us on the national stage as a team that can compete for the Small College World Series every year.
Smiley basically pitched a shutout in the first game, and between Kozer and Zerby in the second game, holding them to the 2-1. I mean, again, if you're a fan of offense, those games weren't for you, but I'll tell you that those were two of the most fascinating games, just intensity the whole time. Any memories of that game, Roniel, those games in your mind?
Yeah, definitely have some memories. The games were intense. You were always on your tippy toes, just hoping something doesn't happen or waiting for just hold the score. They were exciting games. What
do you think? Anything to add there, Kyle, on the Penn State Mont Alto doubleheader?
Yeah, being on the field, it was pretty cool to watch. See like Smiley, Zerby, Kozer, all of them, do their thing, and And yeah, like Coach said, like Mount Alto, they always have a pretty good squad. Even because I mean they were the number one team, in the country. So it was a nice feeling when we got those wins.
So not only did you have those wins, a key victory against Manor College, 2 on the road at Christianum, then a split against Penn State Hazleton, a split against Penn State York, and then we come back home at the end of March and the beginning of April for a 4-game sweep for 2 ESAC competitors with Christianum and Williamson Trade. You had some tough losses in there, but again, you're just playing solid baseball. And of course, no one's going to go undefeated in baseball. I mean, this is just part of the game. You're going to lose a game here or there. Any of those games in that stretch there, sort of post that Penn State Mont Alto, or in the end of March into the beginning of April, that really stand out to you, Coach?
Yeah, absolutely. You know what stands out the most to me is honestly our losses. I think our losses are our best test of heart. It really challenges our group. Being that we lost to Penn State York first game at home. It was our only home loss of the season
Indeed.
last year as well, and that's not something that we're too familiar with. And we did come out in Game 2. Colton Zerby threw a hell of a game in Game 2. It's probably one of the best performances we had on our entire program last year. And being that we aren't going to go undefeated, it is important that instead of dropping 2 games in these series, that we at least fight competitively, especially in the conference games. I do felt that as much as the non-conference games do matter, our group does a great job of getting up for the conference opponents.
Well, and I think that it goes to show how important the ESAC conference is. I mean, guys, I have gotten to call the last 2 that have been at home, and I mean, it's unlike anything else. Like the vibe in the stadium that day is just so important. And off air, Coach, we were talking about how at this point the ESAC is not an automatic bid conference, that we are still searching for additional teams to join, that we would get to that point. But certainly it's got to look good on your resume if you're winning that conference, even without the automatic bid. So your point about how important it is to really take advantage of these conference matchups, I mean, it's and of course having that extra game at FMB Field never hurts, right?
Absolutely, and some of our conference opponents do a really good job of scheduling their strength of schedule outside of our conference competitively. So a lot of the teams on the national stage that we do get to see in the World Series, we do have common opponents throughout the year, and that is a tribute to some of our guys within the conference not scheduling ducks, going out and being competitive, and it allows us to, even if we don't get to play them specifically, use it as a measuring stick game.
I want to just kind of forward to the middle part of April, coming into the end of the season here. With 2 really, really strong showings versus Williamson Trade, April 16th, and then 2 days later, doubleheader sweep against Bucks County. So you won 4 consecutive games there, in part of 7 consecutive victories that happened there in that middle part of April. What was it like at that point in the season? You're having a great season so far. Everything seems to be going well. You've got this 4-game set with 2 ESAC teams. What did those 4 victories mean to the team and their postseason aspirations?
I think what was great about that stretch of the season specifically is that a lot of the times we got on the road, we finished those 2 games, parents see the game on social media, they might see it on Game Changer. Being that we got to come home and really do what we've been doing all year, I believe it was kind of an indictment of where we were, and especially allowing for guys to play at FMB, go through the course of action there, and really show where we are at as a team.
Roniel, I mean, just as we're getting into the meat of your schedule towards the end, but those 2 home games specifically, you've got a senior night in there, you've got another game against Bucks County. Any memories of that 4-game set there in the course of 3 days?
It's just we were playing amazing ball, as you can see. Like all the games, we won by 4 or more runs. That was the point of the season where we knew that our goal was to make it to the Small College World Series, and we were in a time where we didn't know where we were going to land on the ranking, and that's what we were more worried about, where we were going to land at and who we were going to meet there than this part of the season.
So you at this point had a pretty strong idea that you were going to be going.
Yeah.
And I, with all due respect, I mean, even the season before, I think you guys had that very similar viewpoint, and unfortunately it didn't happen, and it was a disappointment. I will never forget, you guys were watching the bid show, and you were up in third floor of ATEC, and my office, I'm now in Bollinger, but my office was on that corner of the building. You guys erupted and shook the entire building. like everybody in ATEC knew that you guys got in. So that was, of course, I was watching the show along with you, but I was down in my office doing so. Anyway, Kyle, thoughts about those last couple of home games before the ESAC championship, either against Williamson or against Bucks in the middle of April last season?
Yeah, I remember like that week. Like we were feeling really good. We didn't really know. We knew we had a pretty good chance to get to small college and all that, but I think just for ESAC purposes, just our conference, I think I remember talking to one of our teammates. I'm pretty sure it was Tyler Haynes. We were saying that if we win these two games against these two schools, because most of the time those two schools, Willie Trade and Bucks, are like our two main ones that we normally have to go up against, especially in the championship. When we beat them, I think we kind of knew that three-peat, at least for the ESAC, was probably, it was 100% confirmed that we're probably at least going to make it. I won't say a win, but we're obviously going to make it.
Well, they ended the season. The Knights ended the season with two big home victories against Penn State Fayette on Military Appreciation Day, which I loved. I still love somebody still owes me a camo cap, because the one I got was a little small for my big head, but no, it was really cool way to end the season. But that also brings you to a really, really fantastic opportunity to host the ESAC championship. And while on paper, that 12-7 game seems like you guys had some cushion, I got to be honest with you. Of every game I've ever called in my life, I've watched this one more than any other game, because I'm talking about when we were getting into that 6th inning and then the top of the 7th when Bucks tacked on 5 runs to make it very, very close, too close for comfort. What was going through your mind at any point during that game, Coach, is how sort of the ebb and flow of that game went? I mean, you started off with an 8-0 victory. It seemed like you were just going to cruise, but not so fast.
Yeah, just get through the finish line is honestly my thoughts going through that game. I will be honest, at that point of the season, it did feel like kind of the ESAC championship was on the back burner, and I do feel like that's kind of where we failed as a coaching staff last year, not necessarily keeping the guys hell-bent on what's in front of us. I really do think the guys did a great job of jumping out in front of them. It's something that we talk about as a focus point in our offensive philosophy. It allows for some of these teams that we've kind of bludgeoned throughout the year to look at it as a here we go again type of mentality. And we do try to beat into our guys. The earlier that we can get out into a lead, the deeper we can get into their bullpen, the more comfort that some of our pitchers are going to have on the mound.
Well, what was different about this particular one? Yes, of course, we're not spoiling anything. Everybody knows that you guys did win the ESAC championship, but the thing about this particular game was, in years previous, Bucks was a much more stiff competition. I mean, you came into this contest, they were 14-21 last season. Most, in fact, at least the 2 years prior, if not the 3, they were much, much better in terms of the record. So I hope that wasn't a reason that maybe you kind of overlooked them. But, tell me some of the memories that you have from that contest.
From an individual standpoint, I went 0 for 5, so that's a game I try not to look at as much in that aspect. But I do remember being in the field when they started scoring a couple more runs, and half of me was like, well, this doesn't look too good. But then the other half of me was like, well, it's not like we haven't been down before. Like I said, the MAC-U game was the best representation of what our team is. We're a team that can come back from, deficits like that. And I just remember being in the field like, well, I think once we get back in on the offensive side, I think we'll be fine. And
Nick Joseph, I mean, he had probably one of the top games of his career, and David Thomas, of course, with the home run. He still told me that he was like super ill that day and that he was still able to hit a home run, and then he got back into the dugout and ended up getting sick, which of course I don't wish that on him, but it was certainly an interesting story because you'd have never known that. Roniel, memories of the ESAC championship last year?
Truth be told, what I remember most from the game was the home run that Cam Smiley gave up. That was a moonshot, but
and he was a lefty too, wasn't he?
Yeah, Evan Erglovitz. He actually broke the school record with that hit.
But just even after that home run, we were still able to keep it together and hold on for the victory.
Yeah, and like I said, it did get a little too close for comfort, and even with that 5-run lead, there was a lot of traffic on the base paths in the 9th inning. Man, I can remember almost every single point of that game. I've relived that game so many times on the broadcast. What's really interesting from my perspective is I don't know if it's just I've done this for a while, I'm almost like, I hate to say this, on autopilot when I'm calling these games, because when I think back to them, sometimes it's tough for me to remember specific instances, but when I watch them back, like, I remember being there. But it's so weird. Like, I've talked to people about this before, and it's so, like, it's almost like an out-of-body experience. It's so strange to try to describe. I guess that's a good thing that I'm to the point where I just do it. It's just instinct at this point, much like what I'm sure you guys experience too on the field. Well, listen, I do want to move forward to talking about this season. Thank you for indulging me in a little bit of discussion about last season.
Greetings, Knights. This is Sir Will, your mascot, and you're listening to the Nightly News Podcast. Huzzah!
But before I do that, I do want to talk about some of the players who have moved on due to graduation. Specifically, the Nightly News Athlete of the Year from last season, Owen Zell. I do know that Owen is involved somehow in coaching this year, which I think is wonderful. I got to talk to him not too long ago, and he said how excited he was with that. But what is it like losing Owen, a guy that has just been so important to the last 3 seasons of ESAC champions and the season before when we went to the championship game?
Yeah, Owen Zell is a huge loss for us this year. It's a gap that we definitely need somebody to step up and fill. Despite them being very small shoes, that's very big shoes to fill in Owen Zell's perspective. Owen was a great leader for us as well. Not even talking about the on-the-field prowess, Owen does a great job of keeping the guys together. The program has faced a ton of turmoil over the last few years, and I think the reason that the program has stayed strong is because of the representatives in the jerseys. And Owen Zell is a great embodiment of what it means to be a Knight. I was very proud to be able to coach Owen in his senior year.
Well, just for a frame of reference, Owen hit 372 last season with a 465 on base percentage. He had 15 RBIs and 35 steals and only was caught 3 times. That's also not even taking into consideration 45 base hits and 40 runs, all of which led the team. I mean, what else is there to say? And a wizard in the field.
Yes.
So it's, what do you guys think? I mean, Roniel, you've played with Owen for 3 years now. I mean, in your mind, how do you can never replace this, but how is the team going to address that hole going forward?
Yeah, with a player like Owen, it's definitely tough to replace him. I think it comes to a point where you have to find different players to fill in the shoes. So you could find one that if you need defense, you could throw in a defender in there in late inning subs. You need a guy that could get you a base hit, you throw him in there. But it's definitely tough to put one player that's gonna fill his shoes in. So it's an effort of multiple.
Kyle, I know you only got to play with Owen for 1 season, but I mean, obviously it was a very important season where you shared the infield with him. Talk to us a little bit more about how the Knights move on without Owen.
Yeah, I mean, when I thought about Central Penn baseball, you think about Owen Zell, and if I'm being honest with you, and be able to share the field with him, I was very lucky and very thankful for. It is going to be a little weird, Clarion was the first game I kind of saw it. It was kind of weird not seeing Owen Zell, at second base, and I think just moving forward, I think guys just have to, acknowledge that yes, he is gone, but you got to step up because, I mean, who knows? You can be the next Owen Zell, you never know, but yeah, it's definitely going to be a little tough not seeing him around.
And another thing to add about Owen's second all-time in hits at Central Penn. He's first all-time in steals. Owen left a legacy. I do believe he's going to be one of the next Hall of Fame inductees.
I would imagine so.
Owen also, as you mentioned, will be in a volunteer capacity with us this year. I believe it's good to bring alumni back into the program, especially guys that want to continue on the coaching career. And I think guys seeing Owen will give them a little life.
I love it. Now, of course, we don't have the opportunity to talk about every single senior that we had last year, but I do want to give you guys all just a chance to maybe give a shout out to a senior that is certainly missed this year.
So I'll go through. I mean, I'll give a lot of love to all the seniors last year. Brady Park played a great role as a team guy last year, understanding where he was, bringing in new life. I really appreciated Brady being around. Colton Zerby threw some of the most important games for us last year. We're definitely going to miss him as well with kind of the lack of depth that we do have in the bullpen. Guys like Colby Criswell as well will be greatly missed. Got another guy out of the bullpen. Although we only lose 4 seniors last year, they were guys that have been around for 4 years. They're 4-year guys. They're like embodiments of what it means to be a Knight.
There's no question about it that even though only 4 were lost, in your words, the 4 that were lost played an unbelievably major role in really both sides, really all 3 facets of the game, pitching, fielding, and offensively. So any thoughts that you have on anybody outside of Owen Zell and the impact that the team is going to feel without them this season? Roniel.
Yeah, definitely the leaders on the pitching staff. I mean, and also a lefty and Zerby. Those were guys that kind of held down the bullpen and, helped out the younger guys too. They were also really impactful and just teaching the game to the younger guys, letting them know, oh, we've been here before. This is how things usually go. This is what you need to do.
Kyle, any further thoughts on the seniors?
Yeah, I mean, Zerby is probably one of the big ones, and Colby. Those are 2 big ones, especially in the pitching aspect. That I'm very thankful that I got to again share a season with them. Another guy who necessarily isn't a senior, but who isn't here anymore, Brian Lowen. I remember Brian. I was lucky enough to live with Brian in the dorms over here, and he was one of the best teammates I think I've ever had, just in sports in general. Not afraid to speak up. He was just a all-around great dude and a great leader.
Also, congrats to Brian Lowen. He just got engaged recently. So
Congratulations, Brian. Well, I want to thank you guys for sharing a little bit about last season, but as they say, we are in this season, so we do want to talk a little bit about this season, what we can look forward to. I don't want to specifically say much more than, unfortunately, because of that big snowstorm that we received, you've already had some cancellations. The Mid-Atlantic Christian trip has been postponed. You're still trying to find a date for that potentially. You did get out there for your first contest of the season, a doubleheader loss at Clarion. I don't want to again talk a whole lot about that other than to say it's got to be tough this time of year. Last few years we've been really lucky with weather and not getting a ton of snow. This year we didn't, I wouldn't say get a ton of snow, but the snow that we got was
enough,
iced over to the point where it's been very tough. I got to give a lot of credit to the neutral site that you played at, that there was no snow on the field. That was very surprising. And then, of course, as we sit here, we're staring down the barrel of another 2 to 4 inches this weekend, which remains to be seen. But what else can you say? But February baseball in Pennsylvania is a crapshoot at best.
Is unbelievable. And even kind of to harp on the Clarion series, it's a great way for us to go down and test where we are as a group. They have 9 Division I bounce backs, despite being a PSAC Division level or Division II level school. We really showed a lot of heart in those games. I think it was a way for guys to see where we are going to be. As much as I do love playing some of the USCAA schools, a school like Clarion is exactly the level of competition that we need to be at in order to compete on a national stage, especially in the Small College World Series. Ironically enough, Clarion and Salem played tonight. And Salem won the World Series last year, so I think it'll be a good measuring stick for us.
Wow. So I guess what I want to get to is more, I don't want to begrudge, I don't want to really break down the schedule other than to say you have a heck of a home stretch here to open up the season. The 18th, the 20th, 22nd, and the 25th. So you're going to be playing 8 home games, if I'm counting correctly, 8 home games in 8 days. So that's going to be really, really interesting part of the middle of the season. Then we have a couple of others, and of course that May 2nd ESAC championship hold on the schedule. Of course, we hope to have that. So interesting how the schedule has worked out, but in fairness, you're sharing with a professional team, and of course they, their needs outshine any needs we might have. So with that being said, I certainly hope that Week 11 stretch and into the first week of break, I hope that everybody is able to get out for some of these games. There's some different start times in the afternoon, so let's just hope for some warmer weather.
Definitely would like to highlight the March 22nd game against Penn State Fayette this year. It's a Sunday. It's a big recruit day for us as well. I would love for as many people to come out in that game and support as possible.
One of the things that we've always seen is weather indicates the crowd size,
for sure.
Almost always, because it can be a little tricky that early in the season. I am looking at the longer term. It is supposed to warm up some over the next few weeks, so we'll cross our fingers. Let's just, in a general sense, I want to ask you, how does the concentration of all of those home games, there are 2 other dates in April, But how does the concentration of all those home dates right in the middle of your season? You're on the road for a month, you're at home for 8 days, and then you're on the road essentially for another month. I mean, how does that composition, and you've dealt with this before, but how does that composition change your approach?
So, truthfully speaking, I like when the guys get to sleep in a little longer and they get to eat kind of mom's home cooking, even though some of them aren't getting it. But I do think home games for us allow us to show the campus, the parents, everybody, what we've gone out on the road the last month and kind of performed at. Our home field is really second to none. It's a great accommodation. So being able to have the clubhouse arrangement, play games at FMB, it's really a blessing.
Roniel, I mean, this will be your 4th season playing over at FMB. What's it like? I mean, I've been on the field before, like pregame catch and stuff like that, but at a Senators game. But what's it like to actually play out there?
It's a different feeling. You can't really describe it. Just being on the island and just the view, it's amazing. It really gets your morale up. It's awesome to play there.
And you're from Harrisburg.
Yeah.
So you have maybe even a different interpretation. I mean, I know personally myself, I've got to see over at the island people like Ellie De La Cruz and Steven Strasburg and Bryce Harper, and the list goes on and on and on. And, just the fact that I'm able to call a game on the field where all those players, you guys get to play on it.
Yeah, no, I went to Senators games all my years growing up, and even like on field trips at like high school, and then just being able to play there like as my home field is awesome.
Now, Kyle, I know that you may not have the same connection to Harrisburg that Roniel has, being from Harrisburg and all, but what was it like for you? I mean, I'm sure as a recruit you were coming up to the games and seeing what it was like. I mean, I'm assuming that weighed into part of your decision to come here.
Yeah, definitely. I am a Washington Nationals fan.
Okay.
So the moment I found out we got to play there, that was kind of all I really needed for me personally. And I did get to go on the games, to some of the games. I went to the senior day a couple years ago. I think when like Kevon Davis was a senior, like I was there for his senior day.
And now he works over at the Senators.
Yeah, he works there. But yeah, like stuff like that, and then being on the field. And I think just like Coach said, like, those little stretch that we have for home games, getting to sleep in a little bit, get to drive over to the field, and kind of just get to walk on the field. Like, you really do feel like almost like a professional baseball player. That's how I feel, and it's one of the coolest feelings I think I've ever experienced.
That's amazing. Well, Coach, I want to take just a few minutes to talk about 2 things here before we get out of here. First, I want to talk about your seniors, and then I want to talk about some of your new players that we might not know. Before we get to any of that, I do want to just point out that somebody who we may not talk about, David Thomas, is a junior, but he's obviously one of the key players. You also have people like Tanner McCoy, who is also a key player as a junior, Tyrell Smith-Cole, who is also a junior, Nick Joseph, who also is a junior. So you've got a lot of those really important pieces who not only will be here for this year, but hopefully in the future. But let's focus on the seniors. I'm just going to read off some of the seniors that are listed on the website. Jordan Spatafor, Roniel, of course, one of the reasons I have him here today, Wyatt Kozer, Cam Smiley, Gabe Kaufman. Those are some pretty strong returning players. So let's talk a little bit. Again, you don't have to go through each, but in a general sense, what role are these seniors going to play on this team?
I see our seniors as the most influential class that has came through Central Penn in a long time. I really do see a ton of them as great leaders, both off the field and on the field as well. We do graduate a ton. Being that Central Penn is an accelerated academic school, we do end up losing some of the juniors because they're at the point of graduation with some of their bachelor's degrees because they're academically ambitious. Central Penn does a great job of allowing them to take accountability in their course load, overschedule classes, get ahead of their game. But going back on the seniors, pitching is what I think about the most right now. Losing Cameron Smiley and Wyatt Kozer is going to be huge.
Well, hey, we have this season. Let's get as much out of them as we possibly can before we talk about them moving on. But I mean, these are the heart and soul of your team.
Absolutely. And Wyatt Kozer being the leading strikeout king right now at Central Penn. Cameron Smiley coming off of a great year. In my opinion, should have been a first-team USCA All-American without a doubt.
I don't know how he wasn't.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And then Roniel being a great guy, being a great leader, being a great dugout guy. I see him coming in as a guy in the lineup that's going to produce some runs for us as well this year. And then going through as well, Nick Joseph is a great addition, taking in kind of an upperclassman leadership role as well. Terrell Cole-Smith holding down the middle infield as a JUCO transfer. And then going back to David Thomas as well, I would like to highlight his year last year being an ESAC Player of the Year, and then our only USCA All-American as well, first team. Tanner McCoy actually got honorable mention, but of the season that we had, I do believe some of the guys were snipped from
There's no question about it. But and hopefully in some way the nightly news awards. I know it's not quite the same as getting USCAA awards, but we definitely had, including
just as important to me, Dr. Miller,
including Kyle winning the Rookie of the Year last year. I don't want to take that away from you. And we have some amazing pictures of you, by the way, from last season. The Matrix photo right here. Getting back to this, so Roniel, I mean, you're a senior. I mean, how is it different this year than all of the other years previous in terms of your role on the team and mentorship of the newer players?
Yeah, I mean, from my own perspective, it's almost sad because, it's my last year, and then, time just flew so quick. I remember just being a freshman.
It doesn't stop.
Yeah, it doesn't stop. But, no, I definitely have taken my role serious. I know that I'm one of the older guys, and then there's a lot of younger guys that look to me for advice, and, I provide that. We got a freshman on the team, Chris Reyes. He doesn't know much English, but he's a good kid. So I try to take him under my wing and teach him some things.
I had this conversation with Kevon. You'd mentioned Kevon earlier. Sometimes leadership is thrust upon you, and what I mean by that is that sometimes as you go, especially in college, your first year or two, you're kind of just a part of the team. Maybe leadership isn't something that you've tried to step up and do, but as you get to junior and senior level, you're a leader whether you want to be or not. You're the one that's setting the culture of that team, and by you showing up to practice on time or taking an extra 10 minutes in the cage, that's going to show the new kids what it's going to be like. And so I had this conversation with Kevon as he was going into his senior season, and I said, listen, even though you don't look at yourself as a leader on this team, other people look at you as a leader. And I think that conversation, he's actually told me that conversation meant a lot to him. And I hope that Coach has shared that same advice with you, is that even though maybe leadership is not something that you're actively attempting to be, I can already tell that you're stepping into that role by mentoring some of the new kids. So I appreciate that to you as well.
And how you lead is so important too. I think leadership is viewed in such a one-dimensional standpoint. In sports, and specifically baseball, leading is how you respond to failure, leading is how you respond when your name's possibly not in the lineup card. All those small things compound. And as a younger guy, I can tell you, especially coaching at a local high school here, that how your seniors act really dictate the kind of foundation of how these younger guys are going to act when they're in those same positions. So it is so important that some of the seniors, even despite they might not get all the playing time that they might anticipate, that there are active Knights, that they're actively being good guys in the dugout, positive role models for a lot of these younger kids, because we do have a lot of younger guys on the roster this year.
And to that point, I think one of the detriments is we live in such a me society. And a lot of times when some of these younger players come in, we've seen it in other sports too, there's an expectation that there's playing time. I mean, if you look at your lineup, it's going to be tough getting a lot of these people out of that lineup.
Absolutely.
And so a lot of times it's just a matter of people having to pay their dues. I mean, Kyle, you've been very lucky that you came in and you started from day one at the hot corner. But what advice do you have for, teammates that are coming in as freshmen and kind of easing them into the team because of the amazing players that we already have on the team and how they're going to deal with their playing time?
Yeah, I remember moving day for most of the freshmen. I think I had an hour conversation with them, already telling them, look, we have guys on our team who did pay their dues and they kind of deserve it. Their position in the lineup, and you just have to keep on playing. You got to keep your head down, keep on playing the game the right way, and Eventually your time will come. Like for me, obviously, I just got lucky. To be honest with you, I just happened to be in the right position, play at the right time, play good at the right time. But even then, I still had to make sure I keep my position, keep all that stuff. But
yeah, you got people chasing you down on your heels.
And that's just how it goes. But yeah, I think my advice to them was really just keep your head down. It's baseball. It's a game. You'll eventually you'll get your your time and all that, but just keep your head down.
Coach, before we get out of here, just finishing touches in terms of talking about some of the new players that fans out there in Knight Nation are going to want to keep an eye on.
So I'll give you 3 before I leave today. One that I was really impressed with, actually all 3 that I was really impressed with on their Saturday performances at Clarion was Braden Kipple was a guy that joined us actually later this year. He will be primarily a starter, maybe a guy out of the bullpen for us in that 3rd or 4th pitcher role. He went out and threw 4 1/3 shutout baseball against a very good Clarion team last Saturday, was put in a pinch because of an injury. I was very impressed with Braden Kipple's performance. Another one that I would keep my eye out if I was a Knight baseball watcher is going to be a Jamarcus Wilson from Keelan, Texas this year.
Texas?
Texas.
How in the world did you find this guy?
We're pretty aggressive with recruiting. We're definitely losing a ton of guys the next few years, so we got to get ambitious. We've struggled a little bit recently with getting some of the local guys. There's kind of that film on the program right now, so we're really trying to cancel out that stigma, but if that means that we have to go 22 hours away to go get some talent, we're not going to.
How did you even find this person?
Ironically enough, there's a ton of online platforms that are very good for recruiting. One that I would advocate for, this isn't an ad or anything, would be Field Level. I'm on Field Level pretty much every single day. I reach out to a ton of kids. I schedule phone calls. Jamarcus was in a unique situation because of all of the amenities that Central Penn does provide, being that we have student success codes for our student athletes, being that we play at FMB Field, being that we have an indoor facility for us to use now. I think all of those things accumulated allowed Jamarcus to come here and understand, hey, maybe I have an opportunity to play in right away. He recorded 3 hits, 2 walks, 2 runs scored in our games on Saturday. And Jamarcus is definitely one to watch out for. I can see him as a utility role. He might be in the outfield some games, might be in the infield some games, might be playing DH. And then the final one I would like to bring up as well for now would be Jordan McCahan. Jordan McCahan's a Redland graduate, 2025. He is extremely talented. He is a utility guy as well. He touches low to mid-80s on the mound, can really swing the bat. I can see him playing some short. I can see him playing some third. I could even see him playing some second this year. So I'm really impressed with our freshman class. I think it's going to add a little life into our program as well. And what I do like to mention a lot of the times in some of my recruiting conversations is that in the World Series, we had the pleasure of playing 3 games last year. 11 guys touched the field. 5 of them were dudes that came to us in the fall. So as much as kind of we do have older guys that are paying dues, we have opportunities for guys to come and play right away. And I do believe that's the unique part about Central Penn.
And I do want to point out, when we were talking about the season, we didn't really talk about the World Series. We did have a chance to talk on that last year in sort of the decompression show. I will also put that, because we had almost an entire episode on the Small College World Series. So I just wanted to, in case anyone was out there, was like, oh my gosh, they got to the Small College World Series and you didn't even talk about it. We did talk about it on a previous episode. So guys, I just thank you so much. I could sit here and talk baseball with you guys all day long. Unfortunately, our time on the podcast has come to a close. So I just wanted to thank all of you for being here, and not only that, obviously all the hard work that you've put in, that you're going to put in, and Roniel, for you as you go into your last season, I just want to thank you for your impact that you've had on the program.
Thank you.
Coach, what else is there to say but you come in, you have the most successful season in Central Penn Knights baseball history. It's just a testament to you and not only the quality of your recruiting, but the quality of your aptitude on the field. So I just, if I ever question any of your decisions on the broadcast, please just let it go in one ear and out the other, you know?
Dr. Miller, I'm extremely grateful for what you do for all of our athletic programs, specifically our baseball program. I can tell you that in a lot of recruiting conversations that I'm having with guys, I tell them all the time, please go online, search up Central Penn Baseball, and watch how we do. We do have a ton of guys that aren't necessarily Central Pennsylvania guys, and I like to assure parents that they're going to be able to watch their kid. They're going to have good commentary throughout. I've watched some lower level college baseball before, and the commentary is brutal. I can tell you do a great job.
I appreciate that.
And so does Steve as well.
Well, yeah, and Steve will be back. I do appreciate that. Basketball is a challenge. I do know basketball. I have watched basketball, but I've played baseball my whole life. I'm a huge baseball fan. I mean, so is Steve, and I think it's a wonderful sort of match made in heaven when we're out there. But we are paid to do a job. Of course, maybe we're partial sometimes, but we try not to give you too much of a hard time. And of course, we understand that it's a game, and no one's perfect. Even as they say, Aaron Judge, strikes out or gets an out 7 out of 10 times. So, with all that being said, I appreciate the opportunity. It's literally the favorite part of my job. And honestly, I wish I could do more to call some road games or some things of that nature, and I think that's definitely something in the future I would like to talk about. But for now, I love being out there at FMB. And of course, Kyle, it's been a pleasure not only to have you on, but to see your growth this year, and now you're into one of the big stars of the team. So I just appreciate your insight on last season and what we're looking forward to this year.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep. All right, well, hey, that's going to do it for this episode of the Nightly News Podcast. I want to thank Roniel Morel, Coach Chaz Stevens, and Kyle Brent for joining us today. But all I can say is always go to centralpennknights.com for the latest schedule and when you can check out the home games and keep up with the Knights this baseball season, rooting them on for their 4th consecutive ESAC championship and another trip to the Small College World Series. But until our first home game, that's going to do it for this episode. We'll see you again next time.